Congressman Darrell Issa from California, and he's on the phone. Good morning, Congressman Issa. How are you?
Good morning, Don. And I was listening to P.C. Richards on hold, so you got a different commercial than I got.
Oh, okay. Were you born in California?
No, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, you weren't.
But if you make car security systems, you know everybody in New York that sells them. So P.C. Richards was one of my customers years ago.
Oh, they're a great outfit. They have 6. You know, they're still run by the family?
Oh, absolutely. It's there's a lot of New York companies of that sort, particularly in the electronics business. It was a business that people could get into with relatively little capital and build relationships. And New York and New Jersey are filled with them.
P.C. Richards now has 61 stores and been in business 100 years. Unbelievable. Anyway, so how have you been?
I've been good. It's one of those things where the country is looking like it's bottoming out and looking like maybe we've stopped going the wrong direction mostly. And if you're a Republican, then that's a change that you're welcoming in direction, if not in absolute.
Now, I guess you're pretty happy with Carly and Meg out there in California?
I am. Partially because I believe that contested primaries with candidates who they may bloody each other, but at the end of the day, they're better candidates, make for better elections in the fall, something you don't get in Pennsylvania. They tried not to get in Colorado kind of thing, because I don't believe you clear the field is the best way to get the best candidate.
Is your, you're sort of alluding to this, is your hair still on fire over this whole Sestak thing?
Well, I guess it's liar, liar, your pants are on fire. I'd like to get to the truth. I'd like to get this behind us. This was a one-day story, Don. All they had to do was say, we had President Clinton try to get him out of the race. And that ended it, because that would have been well before we figured out that, President Clinton was used as a surrogate to try to get around breaking of the law, et cetera, something that now the American people would like all the details on that, and Romanoff, and the growing group of other similar cases that are being investigated.
Well, don't they all do that?
Well, that's the defense. The defense is you want to change, but we're not going to change everything. Some things we'll continue doing, including spending your taxpayer dollars trying to make our politics neater on the Democratic or Republican Party. And maybe the last administration did it. I will tell you that executives of the last administration are reminding me that freshman orientation at the White House says that's illegal. But there's some doubt about whether maybe others did it. But I thought we were supposed to get change we could believe in, and I don't believe this is the kind of change we asked for.
Well, we're not going to get change, we believe, from either you guys or them. We're not ever going to get any change. Here's what, I'm not picking on you, but here's essentially what's going to happen. You guys are all going to say that, I remember when Jimmy Carter ran, and then when they all run. They say, we're going to have a new Washington. We're going to do business. Everything, the lobbyists are all going to be gone and stuff. And then, of course, you all get to Washington and then discover you don't have to worry about it because you got more money than God. But everybody else, and they get to Washington and they figure out that they've got to have the lobbyists because that's where they're going to get the money to run again, and they got to run all the time. So, no, I mean, only fools believed President Obama when he talked about all the stuff he was going to do when he got elected. He said all that stuff to get elected.
Well, that's true. And that's sometimes why you get buyer's remorse. That's why the Brooklyn Bridge doesn't get sold to everybody every day. But, let me just real quickly run you through a little piece of history. Before Andrew Jackson turned the entire government, every single post, into a patronage position in his administration, it used to be assumed that the president came in and he appointed people that he could work with. Then they figured out that it was sort of selling offices, so they passed laws prohibiting of that. Years later, they passed the Hatch Act that makes it illegal once you're in government to use the position of government, including an appointed secretary and so on, to actually, on government time, do political work. Now, you know and I know that the Secretary of X goes out somewhere, and after finishing a walkthrough, they do They do a fundraiser in the evening, but at least there are laws that are supposed to be obeyed that create some firewall. If you tear all the firewalls down, then it's one election, one time, and the next party, sort of the way it's done in Mexico and other third world countries, there is no next election because the power of incumbency becomes unstoppable.
Well, what do you want to happen in the Sestak thing? Them simply just to tell us the truth?
Yeah, that would settle very much for just tell us the truth. As a matter of fact, don't tell me the truth. Just tell the Office of Integrity the truth. I mean, there's plenty of investigative services, several of which I've written letters to. Pick one. Pick whether it's the FBI or the special counsel, pick whichever one, and just tell them the truth. And if they say no laws were broken, I'm more than satisfied to live with that. But there has to be a process, and the process can't be in a Nixonian way, the White House saying no laws were broken.
Far more importantly, I'm sure you agree, is this oil spill in the Gulf.
Oh, far more important.
The president's going to meet finally with this Tony Hayward from British Petroleum, but I don't know what does that mean.
Well, if I were the president, of course I'd have those meetings. Of course I'd make those trips. Of course I'd overfly it. But you think that he would do something that they've been denouncing Dick Cheney doing years ago. I'd call in their competitors. I'd call in the other companies and say, send me your best drilling expert to educate me, to let me know what government could or should be doing that we're not doing. The last guy in the world I would call to find out what government should do people that made the mistake. There are plenty of competitors. Pick Shell, pick Amoco. I don't care who you pick. Pick a bunch of these drillers, including the Halliburtons, the people that do it on behalf of the oil companies, and say, educate me. Tell me what more we should make them do or we should do. That's the only thing that bothers me is that reaction is, what can I do over and above what the guys that screwed this up are doing? Doesn't seem to have happened.
I don't see how this ever. I don't see how they ever return the Gulf Coast region to pre this spill. Do you?
I do. I've been up to Alaska. I've made 2 trips to Alaska, and our environment heals itself in time after you take most of the sludge away. But having said that, I don't see how we ever return to trusting our government or the oil companies without real reform. And I mean real reform, not just breaking one organization into 3 little organizations.
We're talking with Congressman Darrell Issa here on the I'm Someone program. It is 1:45. Digressing sharply here, the Israeli-Gaza blockade, the president said, is unsustainable. What's your view?
Both are unsustainable. The plight of the Palestinians, the portion that are in Gaza that are just trapped, that are innocent, is unsustainable. But at the same time, let's bear in mind that we've got to be part of a solution. We've got to be part of a solution that makes Israel safe with its neighbors. And for that matter, the Palestinians, what a lot of people forget, and I follow Middle East politics very closely, is Gaza is a place in which Hamas killed fellow Palestinians even after they'd won an election and technically taken over. That wasn't enough. They decided to go into PLO headquarters and kill and discharge, if you will, the presidential government because they were controlling, if you will, the parliament. They wanted to control everything. So you definitely have bad guys, people who are not just bad to the Israelis, they're bad to the fellow Palestinians, and that part has to be dealt with. Personally, I think the problem is you can't just lock up the prison when you have prison inmates that do something wrong. You have to say, wait a second, there's a lot of innocence in there. Let's get the bad guys, do it with the Palestinians. Let's clean up Gaza so that the Palestinian Authority, that is at least comparatively very moderate, can take charge and bring some sense of stability. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to keep having rockets, and you're going to have the Israelis not giving things as simple as pasta and building materials to the lawful Palestinians in there. So they're in misery, and the Israelis are in terror. And a lack of leadership that, I have to say, occurred under multiple administrations. It needs to change. We need to have a different attitude toward Iran. I always say, you got to be more Reagan than Reagan when it comes to Iran, because you can't be Jimmy Carter, but quite frankly, every president since then has sort of punted on actually solving the situation of a radical Iran that has existed since I was an Army lieutenant.
Well, what would you do with Iran?
Well, I think the real bottom line is Iran wants to have access to the rest of the world and influence. The price for access and influence is not just not making nukes. It's not supplying terrorist activities to the Middle East. Hezbollah has been funded since the early 80s by Iran, not just to the detriment of the Israelis, but to the detriment of any kind of stability in Lebanon for the Lebanese. And, we keep acting like, well, okay, we're going to try and make them better. No, you're going to look at 17 members of the Arab League and say, you've got to be with us, or you've got to admit that you're part of the problem. The Arabs have to genuinely pick sides, but they have to know that if they pick our side, we're going to actually resolve this. And I don't think they have the confidence in us, president after president. And certainly they don't have the Congress, in their opinion, strong enough to do it.
You don't mean attack them, do you?
That the attack kind of thing is
you got about 10 seconds, by the way.
Every president uses it. But think about this. Iran is not isolated in the world. And every time we have one of these sanction things, we all know that there's a bunch of people, including the United Arab Emirates and others, that are going to smuggle them whatever they need. You've got to make it absolute that we want them in the country of the rest of the world, but the price is stop doing bad things.
We have to go.
Got to go. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, you're welcome. Congressman Darrell Issa here in the Emerson Wayne program.